You weren't changing.
Two months ago, I purchased a 20-year-old Land Cruiser. I was in Australia, but the vehicle in South Africa. It's for my own use in Africa when I visit to come and explore. And now I'm here to rebuild this vehicle and turn it into an overland tourer. I'm Andrew St Pierre White. Join me as I share my passion for building four-wheel drive trucks and then travelling to the remotest parts of the world. Paul Marsh, Jobert and I have already established that the engine...
I think this engine part has been butchered.
So that's not great news. A lot of work to be done. Now it's on the lift to check out the condition of the chassis and drivetrain. There is an oil leak between the engine and gearbox.
It's really difficult to actually, you more often than not between the rear main oil seal, but then when you look a bit higher up, it could be further up from the cylinder head. Or it could be gear oil.
Someone welded the exhaust mount bracket. A sign of abject ignorance.
So what they've done here is made the exhaust solid, but you don't want the exhaust fixed because now the resonance is not carried on any rubbers. Whereas here you've got rubbers holding the exhaust. And you want the exhaust to be carried on rubbers so that you don't get the vibration and noise. The chassis is in fantastic condition. That's something I always look for. How does the chassis look? So shock absorbers we're going to change, rubbers we're going to change, anti-roll bar rubbers we're going to change, springs we're going to change, diff breathers. Here's a diff breather up here.
Yeah.
Normally these are blocked and we'll extend them to the front because these should be extended up so they don't get blocked up with mud. So one of the telltales is the swivel balls here. And you can see that's still in quite good condition, that one there. It's a little bit of corrosion wear there which can be cleaned up, okay? But that's often a telltale, and the vehicles that you get, like say in England, those get really badly pitted and it's difficult to repair them. And you'd have to change a whole casing, axle casing, to repair that, unlike the Land Rovers, which I think have a good design where you can bolt off those. Land Cruiser doesn't.
Okay.
So one of my telltales is we'll strip all that down. There's a little bearing at the bottom, there's a little bearing at the top, and all these will be replaced. It's a complete kit. Inside there, the CV joint and drive shaft through to the diff here gets checked, and we'll take the diff out completely.
Well, we will. We'll do the.
We're going to take the diff out completely to check.
There's a bit of backlash. It's not severe, but when driving in low speeds, you can feel it.
Yeah.
Will you pull that up when you do the diff? Do you pull up the backlash? Or?
Well, we'll first check the condition of the diff, the crown wheel and pinion, to
Yes.
see how they're meshing and what the wear is.
Yes.
And then look at the bearings. And then if we're going to do anything to the diff, we invariably put new bearings, new seals, and then adjust the backlash. Because it's a short change just to adjust the backlash.
Right.
You've got it out, do it properly, change the seal, especially this pinion seal over here. Okay, check the breather's clear, because quite often people don't realize that it's leaking here, but the cause is a blocked breather. And,
of course, it's just pushing
it's got to go somewhere, And I've often said when I'm teaching people bush mechanics is that, you've got a leak, and as long as you can check how much oil's going out. Now you won't know, but if you look on the ground and you see it starting to leak and maybe there's a little bit of a mark on the ground, top it up in the morning, so the car needs to be level. Take the filler out, which is on the back side here. Just put the oil in until it runs out. That's level. Drive 50 k's, stop, let it cool down, have a cup of tea, check. If it's 50 k's, you haven't lost any oil significantly, considering the oil has expanded slightly. Then go and do 100 k's. Do the same check. Then go and do 200 k's. Each time doubling up, you'll know when you need to put oil in. And I drove right across America with a leak in a transfer box, doing exactly that. Every third day I had to put a bit of oil in. And I wasn't repairing it, I was managing it. But I was managing it carefully enough to know that the amount of distance I could drive before I needed to put oil in was this amount, and I stuck to that. And that allowed me to keep driving where I could get somewhere where I could actually fix it properly. It wasn't critical, but it needed to be managed.
Jobert shows how the bushes have worn.
And you can see Oh yeah.
This is to be expected.
It's completely torn.
Yeah. But I've had these break on trips where people have broken them more often than not because the bushes weren't changed, weren't maintained, and they can snap. So it's important.
Is that because of the shock loading because the bush is gone?
Yeah, the bush is gone. So now there's any movement when something has lost its.
The people that take it to the polyurethane people just to make it a solid bush.
Yes.
So the rubber bush gives you movement.
Yes.
But polyurethane doesn't.
Yes.
That's why it snaps.
Actually, the terrain tamer does a really good bush, and we come to looking at their bushes. It's a much better product that they use, like an elastamo. It's a self-lubricating product, and the way they've designed the bush I've never seen before. On the inside, they use a cross-hatch, sort of serrated-like ridge inside, the little grooves. And in those grooves, it traps the grease. And on the edge of the seal of the bush, it's got like a small lip, and that retains the grease more than other bushes, and it stops the dust coming in. So it's a clever design.
Wow, this is terrible.
Yeah, but that's common. It happens. Wears out, rots out.
Absolutely rotten, that radiator.
So what's telling me is good here is these pipes here often rust. This is all in good condition here. You know, the chassis you can see, although it's had a bull bar welded and adapted to fit, it's really in good condition, and that's what I look for. If a chassis is in good condition and it doesn't look like it's had any accidents, and the bodywork looks good, we can repair other bits in it. You know, the rust is the key thing for me. The fact that everything underneath is in place. You know, nothing looks like it's been changed, bastardized, all that. So this car doesn't look like it's had a really tough life.
But what's worrying me the most are the free-wheel front hubs, fitted by somebody that thought that converting this vehicle into part-time four-wheel drive would be a good idea. In order to make this viable, in addition to the hubs, something in the transfer gearbox would have to have been modified. But what? The 105 has permanent four-wheel drive with a differential between front and rear prop shafts that is lockable. Some people add freewheeling hubs to basically stop the front part of the drivetrain from moving when traveling at high speed. And they do it because I have to make this assumption, they do it because they want to save fuel. It doesn't save fuel. I don't believe it saves fuel, okay? In all my experience with driving four-wheel drives and full-time four-wheel drives and part-time four-wheel drives and experimenting, it saves no fuel. I challenge you to measure it. The other part is that, of course, it saves on wear and tear. That's the theory. But it doesn't save on wear and tear because...
Now what happens in the front prop shafts, people with the freewheeling hubs, they stand still. For a lot of the time people drive the car. And you should engage them on a regular basis to turn them. You also should grease the prop shafts regularly. And when it sits in one place,
it wears out, flying in a single plane.
You know, not good, but that will be part of your, when you turn it and clunking, you can hear it's quite a significant.
If I had known this, I probably would have walked away from this purchase. Well, it's too late now. Adding things like that to a vehicle that is designed as a full-time four-wheel drive vehicle, to me, goes against the principles that Toyota have put into the vehicle to get it to work well. The biggest loser are the people that fit them. So we will be removing them and putting it back into standard form.
It shows you the three-wheel hubs are working. So that's just something very strange.
So the vehicle is slowly revealing its past.
There was a knocking, it was definitely from the front.
You think it was from the front?
Yeah.
The aim now is to try and sort out the only problem discovered is the loud noise being emanated from the vehicle in reverse. So I can see now that it's the only thing that they're actually a little concerned about. Because everything else we've seen, it's kind of, oh, well, we'll fix it. We'll replace the part. Not a challenge to sort out. But for this noise. So that's what we're trying to do now, is get to the bottom of that. It's vital that we do so before we go any further.
No, it's hard to tell.
For me on the other side, it felt like the front. Well, at least I've given you a challenge. caliper?
No. Sometimes the caliper bolts strip, and they usually the one fall out when you reverse. The caliper falls back.
Okay.
I found that before.
What we're going to do is actually put it on axle stands, all four wheels off,
And then drive
and
them.
then drive it on axle stands. Then we can get underneath and actually see what's causing that.
Gearbox. What does that mean?
Gearbox.
Basically means we need to take it out, strip it.
Some gremlin in there. Someone's put a banana peel with some sawdust in. You know that old trick? Before they sell a car, it's noisy, you put a banana peel in with some sawdust.
Is that what you do?
Well done. So Andrew, what's really interesting is part of what we're trying to find out is more about the car, more about the history. And I took out the logbook,
Yes.
the manual inside the car, and going through the invoices here, I can see that actually the engine's been rebuilt.
Being rebuilt.
Yeah. So what must have happened is they've removed the turbo because there was a problem, probably relating from the turbo.
Right.
It's had a Madman gauge on it.
Yes.
Now, Madman normally fit a EGR gauge to the
Yes.
engine.
Yes.
It's got an old probe on the manifold.
Yes.
The fact it's got an old probe says that the EGR gauge was there, which is a good
That's
thing.
exhaust gas temperature.
Exactly, thank you. And what that gauge is doing is telling you when you're running a turbo whether you're running too hot. And on an engine that's not built like this one, this is actually the 1HDT motor, which is turbo diesel, built in the factory by Toyota.
Or a turbocharger.
And this would be the most ideal motor in your car.
Yes.
But that one doesn't have a turbo and had an aftermarket turbo fitted. The danger being that the pistons can't take the heat, so when you fit a turbo aftermarket, you want to manage your temperatures that the engine runs at.
Right.
And the best way to do it is using the exhaust manifold and putting a probe in there,
Yes.
and that's the EGT gauge.
And that's got a probe.
And it's got a probe which isn't working at the moment because
No.
they would have taken it out, and the gauge in the car,
Yes.
made by Madman, good
Yes.
gauge, showing more to the story as we put the pieces together on the puzzle.
And
This-
so now it's been
So now what I'm
rebuilt.
seeing is
What
actually
mileage is it rebuilt? Does it give the Odo reading? What date?
kilometers, yeah. So 256, and it's done in 2013.
255,000. It's now got 299 on it. So that's not very long ago.
No. So what they did when they did this, they would have probably overheated the engine, I'm guessing. The cylinder head comes off. They machine the cylinder head, as they've indicated they've done here.
Yes.
They've taken the pistons,
Yes.
honed the bores, put new rings in, and put new big end bearings.
Yes.
Which is good. So the crank didn't come out. It's very likely, as you'd see an engine like that, cylinder head off, hone, put new rings in, put new pistons in, which
Yes.
is also good. Put new big end bearings and put it all
Yes.
back together. So it's probably got on that engine about 45,000 kilometers, which is not a lot. And
No.
again,
So again, what they've replaced is
so
actually
gaskets, pistons, ring set, big end bearings, some gasket, oil filter, thermostat cam belts. Now things like
this is quite positive.
it's very positive, because what it's telling us is that this has had work done on it. Okay, the oil leak we're seeing we'll find. That's the least, but the compressions that you hear the guys have just been taking, they're good.
Are they good?
They're good. So
Okay.
far we've had all the compressions. I think they've got one more to measure.
Okay.
And they're all really good. So that's
Okay,
one.
good.
That's
Very
it's not a 100% indicator
Sure.
of the condition of the engine.
Yeah.
We can't really see inside. What it's telling us is that the compression aspect of the inside of the engine
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. We want
Yeah.
stable compressions throughout the 6 cylinders.
Right.
Not a big variance in those compressions. And that's what we're getting, which is great. The fact that it's had all the modifications done and taken out, you're going back to standard. What we want in a vehicle like this is to keep reliability. Now, if you fitted this engine from Toyota, built with the pistons that can take the heat and the turbo and all that, fantastic. That system, which was a modification done in South Africa by, I think it was Alpine turbos, it all works when it's driven in the parameters of how it's built. When it goes through abuse or it's not managed, that's when damage happens with anything. But you will have a really, hopefully good setup back to back to what it was, 4.2 naturally aspirated diesel. You know, drive it slowly, drive it, enjoy the views, and get there.
And get home.
Reliably.
And get home.
So,
Because honestly, to be honest with you, there is no other reason to own a 1HZ engine.
no,
It's reliability. And it can take rubbish fuel, and so
it's the
that's
whole thing.
the
is
point of it.
It's the motor that's used predominantly in the vehicles in Africa that are still running. There are a lot of newer motors, but it's the one thing. If you had a problem and you went to one of the safari companies, they've probably got bits lying around for it. If you went to a little workshop in the back and beyond in some little place, there's probably some spares for it. That's what you want. It's the footprint on Toyota is massive in Africa and in many parts of the world. It's one of the reasons why Toyota is one of the more suitable vehicles for overland travel. It's not the only vehicle, it's not the most ideal, but it's more suitable for one of those reasons. We can get spares.
Okay.
So again, going back to the
Anything else?
history, they've overhauled the power steering pump, which is good, because on these they used to leak. It's a number of O-rings that they've changed and pulled it apart. That's good. If you were buying this car and I saw the fact that they've done this work, they've done the power steering pump, they've done the thermostat, they've done the cam belt and tensioner. Now, we're going to change that because in my mind, it's a serviceable item. And if that cam belt snaps or something's not right or they've used an aftermarket cam belt and you have a problem, I wouldn't want to risk it. So I try and take the car back to zero. In other words, we want to know that we have got a new cam belt that is good quality. The bearings have been changed, the seals have been changed, the cam seals have been changed, so that in the event of anything going wrong, you're limiting that possible problem.
Right.
Okay, so that's good.
Yeah.
Am I seeing anything else? Steering pump, they did fit new glow plugs, so by all accounts those are still good. Yeah, so again, you never know what you find with a vehicle, and all we're trying to do is we're trying to piece together the history, and that's the real value. It doesn't matter that Toyota serviced it or didn't service it, because sometimes all these bits of paper coming together are giving us a more accurate picture of what the life of this car was like. So if we were making a decision, do we buy this car? Big plus that it's had the motor done. There's a reason why it had it done, we know that, but that's the plus. Power steering's been done. We've looked underneath the chassis and we've seen that that's really in good condition. Okay? There's little no rust on that chassis. In fact,
Almost nothing.
on these,
Honestly,
if you power washed that down, I challenge us to find rust. I don't think we would. So that's great. That's really good. You know? And as we strip the parts off, we'll be able to compare what we need to change.
And the interesting thing is that this, the original owner, not the one I bought it from, but before that, came from my old hometown.
Yeah, Somerset
West.
So you probably find you could
We
almost
probably
track
passed each other in the street.
Probably. In fact,
I probably thought, oh, look, a nice silver one.
When he sees this truck, he's going to probably recognise it.
Yeah,
Isn't that going to be
it's
interesting?
true. Yeah, that's true.
I'd love it if he came and dropped in here after all the work's been done.
Okay, fantastic.
Great.
Next week we'll go through the stock of parts that we have pre-ordered for this build and begin the restoration process.
Some kind of double lip on these things.
So they've
You
got
know
a
about the
double
lip.
they've got a double lip on the seal. Nice. Sure.